Hello and welcome to the Refs Need Love To podcast, a show that gets real, raw, and behind the scenes in one of the hardest jobs on the pitch, the referee. I'm your host, David Gerson, a grassroots referee and mentor with over 12 years experience, over 1,500 matches under my belt. And I'm also the Director of Referee Programming and Development for SoCal Soccer League, a job I have been in now for just about 1 year, and it has been life-changing and wonderful. And I've literally for about 9-10 months of this job been wanting to get my boss, Michelle Chesters, the executive director for SoCal Soccer League, on the line to talk about why in the world she hired me, what we're trying to do, and where we're trying to take one of the largest soccer leagues in the United States, if not the world. Michelle Chesters, welcome to the show.
David, glad to be here.
It is so awesome. I will just say, and I'm not just brown nosing here, love working for Michelle, love our team. We were just all out together in California for the preseason director of coaching, the assigner meetings, and our admin meetings. And we just have such a wonderful time working together. But I will say one of the things I love most about Michelle, it's just there is no BS. We speak very directly. We all are kind of working towards the same goal, and it's wonderful. Michelle, I'll ask before we even get into this, our questions for the day. This culture that we've got running SoCal, it feels really different. For a long time, you were a one-person show running a lot of the things in the league, and you've built one person here, one person there over time. Now we've got about 7 or 8 full-time employees. But what is it you're trying to create, like a culture when you're hiring people? What do you look for?
Yeah, it really is a culture, right? I'm not looking for people who are geographically close to an office. When it took us a few years to get an office in the league, and we had one. And then after COVID, when everybody went remote, we closed the office down. And what it came to be really for me was I need people who are quality. We run kind of small and lean. So I needed people who were good at what they do, who were efficient and hardworking, and could also work remote as opposed to being within a small radius of an office. I wanted people who were quality. So we do have people that live in other states like yourself, like myself now, because they are good at what they do and willing to do whatever it takes to really grow the culture that we're growing. But we are a very tight-knit group. We have a great staff and everybody's there to support each other. And I'm very blessed for that, to have that happen.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. So Michelle, one of the things that's really unique, and so before you and I started working together, and we worked together, so I did a presentation for SoCal Soccer League, almost could be close to 2 years ago, but about probably a year, 8-9 months ago. I had not heard of SoCal Soccer League. I think a lot of people may have heard of potentially Cal South, which is the body who's the USYS affiliate and a certifying body out in California, but SoCal was a new word to me in SoCal Soccer League. I had no idea it was so big and what it has become. Can you give people a little bit of an idea of how big SoCal Soccer League it is, the players, team, by extension, the parents, coaches, clubs? Give them a little idea how big of a league it is.
It's big. It's really big. We really cover kind of Central California all the way down to Chula Vista, just down to the border and everywhere in between. I think this year we'll have right shy of 5,200 teams. That's about 85,000 kids. It's about 150,000 parents. It's about 3,500 coaches and 271 clubs. It's massive. I don't know that there's another league as big as we are in the rest of the country. California is big just in general. And NorCal Premier covers everything in the north and we're everything in the south. And we're still that big. Just an idea of how big California is. So yeah, we've come a long way. This is our 15th year. We started in 2011. And so since then we started with 780 teams and 21 founding member clubs. And we've grown to 5,200 teams and 271 clubs. So massive.
Yeah, I don't think people, if you've not spent a lot of time in Southern California, just the geography and the distance and the drive time that it takes to get from one part of California to another. LA, people widely know that just Los Angeles could take you 2 hours to drive from one side to the other, not even necessarily during rush hour. But if you are going all the way from Santa Barbara or the high desert down to Chula Vista or San Diego, you're talking 3-4 hour
At
drive.
least.
Easy,
At
with
least.
no traffic. You add anything in there and driving around mountains and all that kind of stuff and geography, it can take you 6-7 hours, easy kind of travel. And then it's also, we're dealing with a huge population as well. So we're talking about 23 million people in that area. Again, New York City is 7 million people by comparison. So to try and understand, Eastern New York, which goes all the way up to the Canadian border, is only 13 million people. So you're talking outrageous amount of people, outrageous geography, and also a soccer loving culture. Southern California is the place to be if you want to play soccer. It was the home of U.S. soccer for a long time, but it's got people from every corner of the earth who come there, wonderful weather, and people playing all year round. One other thing that I find really interesting about SoCal Soccer League, aside from the amount of people that are involved in this league, is just how many fields that we have in our league, how many locations. Because in my part of Georgia, if there is a club, generally they've got kind of one central location of fields. And if it's a small club, maybe they have 3 or 4 fields. But if you're a large club, they might have 20 or 40 fields where they try and play all of their games every weekend. That's not like it in California. We've got a lot of different venues that our play happens at. Can you give a little bit of some numbers around that and how and why that is?
Yeah, in Southern California, we have a few complexes that we use for our state cup event. Land is expensive in Southern California, so it's really hard to find facilities where people will build facilities. It's expensive. You've got to find land that they can't build houses on. That's the reality of it. If they can build houses, they're going to build houses, not soccer fields. So the venues that we have for State Cup, we use 5 venues and about 110 fields for our State Cup event. That's the only time where we really use multiple field venues. For the fall season, the clubs are all responsible for having home fields. And we run about 1,200 independent fields each play day during the weekend. So again, from that Central California down to Chula Vista, we are navigating about 1,200 fields every play date for the fall season only. It's crazy.
Again, that's mind boggling. 1,200 fields. Now, the crazy thing is, so I watch a lot of videos and I'll watch games, U10 games or 7v7, U8 or U12. A lot of those games are happening, and even at the higher level, you're talking about U16, U17, it's happening at a local elementary school. Maybe it's a middle school, it's a high school, it's a local park, and it's very spread out. And that is also one of the challenges we have, trying to be able to mentor referees or support referees or just to be able to have
referees.
Or get referees.
Yeah.
It's so unbelievably spread out across the entire Southern California area. And I just want you all who's listening to this, 1,200 different field locations that we have on a given weekend, on any given weekend, because we have over close to 4,000 games on a given weekend, which is insane. All right, Michelle, one thing I want you to touch on is the growth of SoCal Soccer League. So this league is relatively nascent. It's relatively new. It's a little over 15 years old now, but it has quickly grown to one of the largest soccer leagues in the United States. So why is that? In this day and age of pay to play and all of the alphabet leagues and kids who are like U10 having to travel 3 states away for a league game and everyone chasing an expensive badge and a status symbol and all this stuff all across the country, why is it that SoCal has been growing? What is it specifically about this that's different from even the local leagues that we compete against for players and clubs like AYSO or USYS? Why is SoCal going through so much growth?
I think because our clubs are growing. I think that's the first thing. When the league first started in 2011, when we started with just 780 teams, the league that we came from only allowed the clubs to have 3 teams per age group. So they really restricted how large a club could get. And we removed that restriction. And so I think clubs have been given the ability to grow because there's so many kids that want to play. It's a popular sport. Like you said, we play year round in California, and clubs should be allowed to grow however big that they can support with their infrastructure and fields and that kind of thing. I think we've had so many clubs move over to SoCal from competing leagues just because of what we're doing. I think the competition is better. I think the experience is better. The infrastructure is better. So I think we still have new clubs coming. This year we added 24 new clubs that were playing for competition and decided this is where we want to be. So I do think just organically, the clubs have grown because we don't limit the size. And even though clubs are still taking teams and going into some of the alphabet leagues, they still need that infrastructure, right? They still need those younger teams. They still need the multi-levels of play. They need the bottom of their pyramids to support the tops of their pyramids. And I think that's what's happening. And the more opportunities that a club can provide to players, the more players they get, the more teams they build, and they all need a home. I think that's been part of why the league.
People out there who don't know. So we do not do, SoCal Soccer League doesn't have MLS Next. It doesn't have ECNL or ECNL RL. It doesn't have also recreational, right? So we go from U7 to U19, but it is specifically competitive academy soccer, but at a wide range. I think we've got 5 different tiers of competition levels that people can play in and enter teams in, from what we call a flight floor 4, which would be the lowest, to 3, 2, 1. And then we've got this new N1 National League that it replaced NPL and the former National League, but N1 is what it is. So it's a wide range, but it's competitive soccer. Now, one thing that's universal across all leagues, specifically, and this relates to us and our conversation today, I think one of the things, Michelle, and before I got on board, I'd love to hear your perspective on it, is that running the league, one of the toughest things to deal with is referees. Everyone loves to complain about the referees. Everyone's frustrated that we don't have more referees or better referees, or all of that, the kind of stuff about refs, right? It's someone else's problem, or was someone else's problem. What was the state of officiating in SoCal Soccer League? And what were you personally seeing or hearing that told you we need a dedicated leader? It's not just I don't want to just complain about this to someone else anymore. I want to address this issue head on. What was going on, and what led to you creating a position to specifically address this and invest in it?
Yeah, I think over time, things have changed. I've been in this game a long time. Before being part of SoCal, I was part of another league. And just over the years, seeing how things have changed. There's always been issues. There's always been fights. There's always been problem games. That hasn't changed. But the sidelines have become a little bit more intense. Referee abuse is becoming more common. I feel a lot of times people just come to their games in a heightened state of not aggression, but maybe just ready for anything. And it's really hard to say we're going to hold a coach and a parent accountable, or a spectator and a player accountable, if we're not holding everybody within kind of the ecosystem accountable. And that includes referees. And I think the referees get a lot of abuse. I know I wouldn't want to go to my job and stand in a room full of 200 people that just yell at me for an hour and a half, and that's what's happening with the referees. And no wonder we have a shortage. So I think it's just seeing over time how things have changed, really kind of starting to pay attention to how many referees we had, how many we were losing. For a long time, referees weren't a focus. We were trying to build a league. We were trying to give the clubs a place to put their teams and get a schedule done. And like you said, I was a one-woman show for a long time. And those are hard things to focus on when you're just trying to get a schedule out, when you're just trying to get games played. So it took a long time to get to the point where I could focus on what was going on with referees. And I could focus on how to make that experience better. And part of that led to weeding David.
I'm so glad you decided to take this on. And again, just speaking about the unique issues within SoCal, again, if you've got 1,200 field locations on a weekend, and the majority of our games, because it's the majority of teams, U7 to U10, a lot of times you have a single referee who's by themselves at a field, and they're on their own. And you've got 100 potential spectators, and you've got coaches, and they're all day on their own. They have no one else around to support them or give them feedback or any cross-pollination of ideas or training. And it's a pretty tough situation. It also makes it really tough to bring in new people, someone who has no experience, and throw them out at some location completely by themselves. So it's a really big issue. But the one thing I want to ask, you're not alone, or SoCal Soccer League is not alone, that they've got challenges with referees. It happens all across the country. Every league probably has some, issue with their referees. Why How did you get the support from the board and from other people to specifically take this challenge on? Was it there one particular issue that just broke the camel's back, so to say, or was this you've tried everything else? Let's try and focus on making referee life better. What was it?
Yeah, I don't know that it was any one specific thing. I think, again, it was just seeing where things were trending and realizing that we can't keep trending in the wrong direction. And the more we were doing to implement things where we were holding the coaches and the spectators accountable, the pushback kept being, what about the refs? What about the refs?
Right.
What are you doing to help the refs? And what are you doing to make the refs better? Basically saying, I'm mad because of them, because people do sometimes have a hard time controlling their emotions or taking accountability. But yet what they were saying was true. And it wasn't really part of our programming. And it wasn't, probably for a long time, it wasn't an issue we felt was ours. Because again, it was me and maybe one other person. We were just trying to get the games played, the schedules done, let the ref assigners deal with the refs, let them figure out what's going on there. But it really wasn't a focus. And just kind of conversations I always have in my head is, we just can't keep going in the wrong direction. So how do we correct course? And how do we fix this? And how do we go to the parents instead of just saying, yeah, you're right, but yeah, you're right that the referees are a problem. Yeah, you're right that maybe the referees need more training, but that's not our wheelhouse. That's not our responsibility. But you know what it is? It is our responsibility. It's part of the experience. We can't play games without refs. And here we focus on getting a schedule, getting the games played, getting our season in, and yet we're not focused on the part of the game that can't happen without them. So that's really was what started me thinking, and then speaking to the board. And luckily on our board, we have some DOCs who have been with the league since the beginning, who see what's going on out on the field, who understand the dynamic, who listen to the parents and coaches complain about referees. And we all know the ones that are the ones, you don't ever hear about the good ones, right? Nobody ever calls you and says, oh my gosh, we had the most amazing referee. They call and he couldn't run, or he was late, or he didn't know the game. We hear about all that. So we get the negative, but we don't really get the positive. And so again, not feeling that was our problem, so to speak, I made it our problem. And so just as the executive director, I went to the board and said, look, we've got to do something about this too. And they were very supportive of that because they're all part of clubs and they all understand the parents and the coaches and what they're complaining about. So that's why I started putting some brain time into what we could do to make things better for the referees, with the referees, and then which in turn would improve the experience for everybody.
Yeah, no. And obviously I'm outrageously thankful and grateful. And I do want to ask you about that. You could have added it as another line item onto someone else's plate on the team. You got lots of capable people. Everyone's wonderful and they'd love to try and help where possible. But you specifically, again, I know this is weird asking you this question, but you decided to create a full-time position and hire me, and not just hire me. We're making significant investments. We're going to talk about the Fair Whistle platform. We're going to talk about our learning management system that we're paying for and we've built over the last 9 months. But why have a dedicated person run this as a referee? Because I bet there's probably other clubs that might be listening to this and other people and other referee associations. Why was it so important to have a specific person who could take this on?
I'm not a referee. I'm not a certified referee. I was a sideline parent for a long time. I played the game, so I understand it, right? But I knew that in order to get to where we needed to get to, we needed the experience. We needed the voice. We needed somebody who could be the front, lead it and be the figurehead. And that was never anybody but you. I think just your platform, your outreach, your knowledge, your experience, and your ability to work so well with referees everywhere was important. It was hiring somebody within our own kind of market with the referee associations that exist in Southern California, which is unique in and of itself because there are 30 plus associations as opposed to some states that just have one state association, one assigner. We're dealing with 25 to 30 assigners and all of their referees and their associations. So there's a lot of moving parts to our market with that. But for me, in order to do it right and do it the way it needed to be done so that it could scale, that it could have an impact, we had to have that person. And not just with the LMS, not just with bringing in Fair Whistle, but even boots on the ground, having the webinars, being able to communicate in the newsletters, managing social media. All of that is part of the specifically. You were the no-brainer in it for us.
No, I'm so glad you made that decision. Obviously, I'm having a blast and enjoying it. But again, I think there's opportunities. Now, I have seen at U.S. officials, which is a NASA national signing platform, they have actually hired a full-time person to do referee programming development for them. I've seen a few other roles pop up, but it's generally a trend where leagues and associations are starting to recognize that referees are not a part, like separate from the system, but they're actually an integral part of the system, and they need to be trained and developed, just like we're trying to train coaches and we're trying to train players. That referees need the same type of ongoing training and investment too. And that leads me to the next thing. So we've been building now for almost the full year that I've been on board, about 9 months really earnestly doing it, a whole new learning management platform system training program for referees, kind of like unlike anything else in the world. And if I will, just for those who are listening to this or watching this, recognize that we are not trying to rebuild FIFA Red or the US Red, or whatever they call it, this platform. That's not what we're trying to do. That is made for referees who are looking to become professionals or national professionals. And the clips in those things are national professionals. We specifically are developing something for a grassroots referee with actual practical advice and guidance for reffing a grassroots match, which is so important, and all of those types of things. But it's not a small lift or investment. The platform is expensive. Every user is expense. Developing the technology is expense. Building the content is one thing, but building in the platform's another expense. Michelle, what are you hoping comes out of that? Even it's just the referees feeling like they're getting more training, but also hopefully to upgrade their skills and knowledge on the pitch. What's the hope in building out this platform?
Because the referees feel more supported by taking the courses. I think when we look at referee certification versus coaching license, used to you would become a grade 8 referee and then you could move up from there, the licensing or the certifications, and you could move up. So there was continuing education. Just like on a coach can start with their grassroots licensing and move all the way up to the A. It takes a long time, takes a lot of money, but they're also getting compensated for that. As a coach moves up and ends up getting a B or an A, they're getting paid more. The courses are expensive. They're not offered very often. So it's hard to get in on them. But now the referees just have basically a grassroots certification and are on their own from there. You and I both have stories of these poor referees who are just getting certified that get assigned to games they have no business being on, and they're immediately set up to fail. And then we wonder why the attrition rate is so high. So we have to give them ways to feel supported. We have to give them ways for a nominal amount of money that they can continue their education, that they can learn more, not just about the game, not just about the laws of the game, but about how to diffuse situations, how to handle a confrontational coach or spectator, how to deal with referee abuse, so many things that they almost become life skills too, right? Learning how to talk to an adult who's being aggressive towards you, sadly. So I think developing the program and the money that we've invested in it, I'm really hoping that allows referees to feel more support and that we are doing things to help them, that by the time they step on the pitch, they have a little more confidence than they do just getting certified and then just going into war. So.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think it's so important. There's so many things that we're covering that are certainly not covered in the new referee training courses or even the recertification courses. So hopefully they feel better prepared to handle the things that are going to happen for them on the pitch. One of the major things that we've just publicly announced, we've told people we're doing it for a while. We've told the clubs we're doing it for a while.
It shouldn't have been a shock to anybody.
Yes, but we have increased referee pay in SoCal for the first time in over 6 years. This fall, we're going to be raising it to $3 a minute for a 3-person crew on a 90-minute match. And for those who are listening to this and don't understand how the numbers work out, it's approximately for a U19 match, it might be 110 or 115 for the center, and then the ARs are making around 75 for each position. At a single referee on a U8 or a U10 match may make $80 or $90 for a single 60-minute match. But we know those are very intense environments, some of the most difficult ones that we manage. And also, again, these people are on their own at a field for 4 or 5 games in a row. It's really demanding work. What made you go from the $2 a minute that we were at to a significant raise to $3 a minute that we're at now? What made you decide we need to make that happen?
And looking back again, they were getting $2 a minute coming out of COVID. And we lost so many referees during COVID, probably down to half of what we had pre-COVID. And at that point, the referee situation was still not our problem, right? It was still, now we're just coming out of COVID and, oh my gosh, can we get people to play and what parks are open and all that craziness. And so still not our problem. And now in the past year and a half, as I focused more on, yes, it is our problem. How do we make things better? How do we get referees to want to referee? I don't know anybody who's probably gone 6 years without having a pay increase of some sort.
Yeah.
And it's also what they have to deal with. And focusing on how do we make it better? How do we provide what they need? How do we make the experience better for everybody? We're rolling out this LMS. We're going to be using Fair Whistle, but people don't get something for nothing, right? We're not just going to give them an increase and not expect something in return for that. And so the time was right to say we're going from 2 to 3, which we told our clubs a year and a half ago so that they could budget accordingly. We're going to go from $2 to $3 a minute, but these are the expectations. So now we want them to do more because we put our arms around the referee community and said, we understand the problem and we want to be part of the solution and we don't want to continue to be part of the problem. So we're going to pay you more. And maybe that brings some referees back into the referee pool that didn't want to ref anymore. Maybe that brings more people into reffing because the money's a little more enticing, but we're going to expect you to participate in these programs as well.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, everyone thinks, oh, I've got a referee shortage. We've got a very unique referee shortage in California. California, again, it's a very expensive place to live. Fuel prices are extremely expensive. There's also a pretty high minimum wage. So you could potentially go get a MIC job at $16, $20 an hour or any hourly wage job. And so because our wages of referees have not kept up, and it's just a difficult place to be in today's environment, there are a lot of people who never came back after COVID. And we are dramatically understaffed. I went out and I shared this with all of our coaches, administrators, and assigners. If you compare us to Cal North, we have less than half for every one person in the population. There's 50% less referees than it is compared to Cal North. When we compare other states like Florida, there's 20% less referees here in California. Georgia, significantly less, like 50% less. And so it's a serious issue for us that we need to create an environment. And the foundation of that is pay, an environment where people want to come ref. So the foundation is pay. I think the next thing going on up is just also making sure that people feel safe. So we were one of the first leagues in the country, almost as soon as the referee abuse policy 531-9 launched in the United States, it covered teams, the players, and team officials, but it didn't cover spectators. And we were really quick to extend that to spectators. Additionally, we created a sideline behavior course. So if someone did get sent off for referee abuse, that they would have to take a sideline behavior course that used to be $50 and serve a 3-game suspension, which is beyond the minimum in the referee abuse policy. Now it is $100 and a minimum 3-game suspension. But can you talk about how SoCal decided, or why you decided to take a harder public stance on abuse specifically from spectators?
I think it's probably I would say there's always more spectators than coaches at a game, right? So I think it's the number one reason that referees leave the game. And we rolled that sideline behavior course out last year. There's a coach specific one and a spectator specific one at $50 a person. And we had over 300 people that had to take that course. And I know in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking at that point, 4,800 teams last year, doesn't seem like that many, but 300 people got sent off from a game. We have teams that are already having to take the course, a full sideline of spectators that are going to have to take the course before they can start the season because of behavior during tournaments now. So we just felt maybe $50 wasn't enough of a deterrent for people to check themselves on the sidelines. So we've increased it to $100. And I don't feel bad about that. I really don't. It's necessary. It's us showing support for the referees. 531-9 is a very important policy. It should extend to spectators, and we are making it extend to spectators. And the consequences, consider them severe, but necessary.
Yeah, no, I love it. Trust me, I'm a big fan. I think it should be a deterrent. And I think it's going to be one of those things that club administrators and directors of coaching and coaches are going to be talking about at their preseason meetings. And they do not want to hear it at all. And that leads us actually to the next point. So one of the issues that we've heard over the last year or so is that you're asking us to be quiet. You're asking us to have respect. You're asking us to be so well behaved on the sideline. But what about the referees? If they're not performing and they don't know the laws of the game, you want us to be silent? And so we've actually had to address that because it is honestly, that is an issue. Now, I don't want some biased coach or parent yelling at the referee and creating a toxic environment and trying to make it seem like that's okay, especially if it's someone who's brand new. I don't want them being aggressive towards them. That's true. But I also want to know if I've got a referee who never leaves the center circle and can't even be bothered to keep up with a 7v7 match and is making penalty calls from the other half of the field and doesn't know the laws of the game, we need to know that. So we are actually going to be implementing the Fair Whistle reporting platform on every U7 to U10 game, which is the majority of the games within our league. Maybe it's 20,000 matches this season. And we are going to be surveying. A survey is going to go out after every match to the referee so that they can rate the coaches and they can rate the spectators, but also a survey is going to go to the coaches, and the coaches will be rating our referees, the referees and the assistant referees. Now, this is a massive investment. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this. Why do you think it's important to have these surveys in our league? And what do you hope are the impacts here, both for the coaches and the spectators and also for the refs?
And I think it goes one step further than that. I think it's for the clubs as well. So I think Fair Whistle is important to us. We tested it for our State Cup holders earlier this year. And then you and I have had these discussions about how to best utilize the data and the information and the product itself, and making the decision to roll it out with the U7 through U10s. We're going to use it in the National One League as well. So in all those U13 through U19 games, and then we'll use it for State Cup again. So what we're trying to do is collect data, right? We're trying to find out, do we have problem referees that shouldn't be on specific levels of games? Do we have teams that are repeat offenders and bad citizens that need to be checked? Do we have spectators that are consistently being rated 2 and lower at multiple games? You can't just get finite data from one game, feedback from one game. Referees can have a bad day. Coach could have been in a fight with his wife. Parents got laid off from their job. There's 100 things that can happen in one game. But if we can take the data that we can collect over thousands of games, or specifically for these age groups, we can see their whole season. We can see their 14 league games plus their State Cup games. And we start seeing trends. We start collecting the data on the referees in those age groups. Then we start seeing trends. Do we have referees doing U8 games because they can do 6 games in a row and make $80 a game without leaving the center circle, and they're getting rated 2 and below? We have an issue we need to address. Do we have a team that consistently gets rated 2 and below, or a coach that is always getting rated a 1, win or lose? Then we have an issue we need to address. So it really is going to give us the analytics that we need in order to address these issues at the younger age groups, because we know that's where it starts. And if we can kind of get some semblance of control and get an idea of where teams are, and then provide the data to the clubs to help them then say, look, team, you guys got ranked 2 and below for every game this season. This is a problem. It's almost giving the clubs kind of the data to support discipline, or the data to support, great job, coach. You did great with your team. The team was ranked 4 and above all season long. We can hold clubs accountable. The data gives us the ability to hold them accountable as well. So it's everybody, right? It's a big picture product. So we've got refs we can hold accountable over a period of time. We have coaches and spectators being rated as well. And then we can go to the clubs and say, congratulations, club. You guys did a great job. All of your teams were ranked 4 and above for the season. Congratulations. You should congratulate these teams, whether it's a certificate, a pat on the back, whatever that looks like. But then we can also go to those clubs and be like, every one of your teams in these age groups was so bad. And we can catch that earlier in the season too, right? We can, after 3 or 4 games, we can say there's a trend. So let's get ahead of this before we have 14 games that way. So I love the fact that the analytics are there and the data that we can take for everything and everybody in the ecosystem, and hopefully adjust course where needed.
Yeah. And every referee listening to this podcast will know that there are times when spectators have not behaved well, yet they still didn't get sent off, or a coach may have gotten a yellow card in the match, but you just wanted to finish the match and get out of there. And so you didn't send them off. You didn't pull that second yellow card, and you know you should have. I would also say too, so we'll get that data, because a referee will rank the people on the sideline and be like, yeah, this is what was going on. They can give comments. They can just give a 1 or 2 out of 5, whatever. And we'll see a trend appearing over time, potentially. On the other side, I've had a lot of referees be like, wait a second, coaches are going to be rating me. They're just going to, if they lose, they're going to rate me bad. Yeah, they do. Losing coaches do rate referees lower, and the analytics take that into account. Additionally, we're not just looking at 1 game worth of data. If a referee has been working for first 3 weeks of the season and they got 15, 16 games, and in every single match from 30 different coaches, they're scoring 1s or 2s or 3s, that tells a story. We've got a problem, right? Now, if they're scoring 4 5s, great. We can send them, great job, attaboys, but attagirls, great, thank you so much. But if they're all scoring below standard, that's a problem. And previously, we wouldn't know about it, right? Wouldn't know about it at all. That might go the entire season and you'd never hear about it. And our clubs and teams would be having a less than stellar experience. So this data is going to be used to inform. We're not taking like crazy actions that get one game worth of data for 1 upset coach. Right?
No.
We're not taking action, but it helps us see trends over time. And we can either invest in or direct the referee maybe to more training or a game that's better suited to their skill set. Or for coaches and parents, as spectators, give them some of their own feedback so that they understand what's expected out of them and warn them of what the consequences could be if it continues. So I think it's a positive thing overall.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I'd like to see more leagues move in the direction and use a product like this, because the more data they can collect nationally, the more it can support programming and really give clubs the ability to hold people accountable within the clubs. I think it was interesting too. One of the things that they shared with us was when you look at the overall rankings for different leagues, spectators always rank lower than the coaches. And one of the things that we've had to do in our league, which I was so opposed to when we did it, was we had to move the spectators back onto the same sideline as the teams. When the league first started, one of the first things everybody wanted to do was put the spectators on the opposite side of the field, mirroring their team. Coaches love it that way because then the parents they don't hear the parents. And I know they do it that way in many parts of the country, but we found a few years ago that because we hold the coaches accountable for the spectators, and the spectators were on the other side of the field, it was hard for them to deal with coaching the team, plus listening to the parents, plus telling the parents to be quiet. Yeah. And so we put them back on the same side and separated the spectators, because every team not every, majority of teams have those parents that crowd midfield that want to sit right next to the opposing team, with the goalkeepers or the forward parents that want to switch ends and get mixed up with the spectators from the other team. And it just was too volatile. And so we put parents back on the same side as the coaches. And now we want the referees to go to the coach and say, hey, coach, this spectator, or hey, coach, can you quiet your sideline? Now we can hold the coaches accountable, but it's still interesting, even in that format that we've switched to, that spectators are still ranking lower than than the coaches. So I think that's interesting, but it would be really interesting. I hope Fair Whistle at some point can come out with some national data and would be able to share that. But for us, this is going to work. This is a great program that we're adding to the league.
Yeah, I personally, so my exposure to Fair Whistle, I was at MLS Next Fest last December, I believe. And so as a referee, I received an email while I was officiating the match. As soon as I got to my phone after we finished our debrief after the game, I've got a survey, and it took me like 2-3 minutes to rank the coaches and the spectators from both teams. Was there any racism or any things to report? Nope, good. 2 minutes and I'm done. And I can give my feedback. And also I received feedback from the coaches as well, who were ranking me on a scale of 1 to 5. Also, coaches can provide video clips. So if there's key match incidents that they were really concerned about and think that there might have been a serious error, they can put those things into the submission that they put in and add to it over time. And I have to tell you,
which doesn't mean we're going to switch calls, change calls, change the results. We're not using it for that. We're using it strictly for kind of knowledge and educational based purposes.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what MLS Next does. So like during season, the gentleman who heads up MLS Next officiating, Zabiga is his last name, he's a former MLS ref, but he actually he looks at those clips, and that's what they use to do their communications every week and inform their training webinars that they do. If they're seeing things that are coming up 2 or 3 times where referees may not be handling a certain situation the way they want to or what the expected decision is, they can use that for training. So it's not VAR, and we're not going to reverse a red card or a yellow card through this, but it helps us develop better training content to inform our referees. I will also tell you that through State Cup, and we got a couple hundred videos sent our way, oftentimes there's coaches who are complaining about things that are non-issues. And so it gave me an opportunity to redirect them and say, hey, that's totally expected decision there. In the future, kind of focus in on these types of things if you want to send us clips. So it gave me an opportunity to communicate back to them. I had one person who sent in they were upset because they lost a match, obviously. And one of the comments they put in was that the referee was talking to the players too much because they were losing the game. And the referee was trying to manage the match, and tensions were getting high. And so they were actually having a conversation with players to calm things down. And we had a coach who was upset about that. And it gave me a great opportunity to be like, Coach, that's actually what we're encouraging our referees to do, is to communicate, out there on the pitch.
Well, and in the heat of the moment, a coach is going to feel a certain way. And I thought it was interesting when we had our DOC and club admin meetings this past weekend, where there's a cadence of time where Fair Whistle email ends up in your box. Yeah. And we want the coaches to fill it out while everything's still fresh in their mind. And I thought it was interesting that there were people that wanted, can you send it 2 days later? Or can you send it, does it have to be right after the game? Because the coach is going to be in a heightened state of anger if they lost the game. And I thought it was interesting because a coach should be able to put himself on timeout and not fill something out. If you've told parents, don't talk to me for 48 hours, then as a coach, don't fill this out for 48 hours if you're angry about it. And so it just made me think that there's still, we know they can't control themselves, so can you control them for them? I thought that was really interesting, but we want them to give feedback. And we did find during State Cup that even from the teams that lost, they were reasonable when they filled things out for the most part. Even if they were angry, they were still fair, which was surprising. And like you said, they definitely have the metrics in place to adjust for that. But yeah, it'll be really interesting because I do think people will understand, wait, I'm getting ranked too. Yep. So I need to be fair because I want them to be fair. So, Yep, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, there's so many things that you brought up there are great points, because I've certainly had coaches post-match be upset about a call during match, and I'm like, hey, send me the video. And then a couple days later, they send me the video like, yeah, no, I'm sorry. It was
Yeah.
a good call. I agree with you. And so that happens. But it's almost like we're training coaches to have a growth mindset as opposed to a victim mindset. When you're giving ratings afterwards, you need to try and think about objectively, what did your team do in that game? Was it really the referee? Did they really have poor communication and game management, positioning and movement? Or did your team just not convert the chances they had? Did your goalkeeper not make a save? I mean, be open and honest, because if we're getting rankings from a coach that's 2-2-2, 1-1-1-1 every time they lose a match, and those referees are scoring 4s and 5s from every other coach, okay, maybe the issue is you, coach. Maybe it's not the refs. So there's a lot of good stuff that we're going to get out of this. But yeah, no, I don't know, so much good stuff. But you can't delay sending the email just because they can't manage their emotions.
I think growth mindset too is a really interesting conversation as well, because we want them to be able to control their emotions. And this just goes into a whole nother thing with coaches is obviously most of them are paid. We're in this pay to play model, right? And parents expect wins. Parents want to win. So there's pressure on the coach. So the coach is going to put pressure on the referee. And who suffers the most in all that? The player. Yeah. So it's the growth mindset. There's so much pressure on these coaches at every flight for us, at every level of play, because parents are paying. What's wrong with that? And people deserve to earn a living. And in order to do that, you have to generate revenue. But there's so much pressure on the coaches. And then they in turn put the pressure on the referees. Yeah. And it's just a kind of a vicious cycle. And it's, how do you get that growth mindset and yet take all the external noise and expectations out? It's that we could go do a whole nother conversation about that. But
I know.
Yeah, this is a start. This is a start with hoping that they can realize, let me take a step back for a minute. I'll fill this out tomorrow or tonight. Yeah. And then, because I want to be fair about it.
Yeah. I want to talk to you completely different direction now, but I think this is so important, Michelle. So there are not many women run soccer clubs or leagues in this country. And I would guess around the world, it's even more rare. But here in the United States, it is definitely rare. We were at that director of coaching meeting this past Friday, and I would say that room was 99% male. So can you tell us a little bit of a story of how you became the executive director of one of the largest soccer leagues in the United States? What did that path actually look like?
It was hard. It was very hard. When the league started in 2011 and they were interviewing for just a manager position, they hired me, but they also hired a man to be my supervisor. So they made somebody else the executive director, and I was just manager of operations or something silly like that. And he lasted about 6 months. And for, I don't even know how many years, I was by myself, working 24/7 with schedules, hundreds of emails a day, trying to get schedules to referees. And one of the things I really had to do was prove myself. Being a woman in a man's world is very difficult. It's not an easy journey. Kudos to the women out there who can do it. And I know of only one other woman who's running a league in this country, just straight out running the league. I only know a couple women who are DOCs of clubs. So for me, it took a long time for people to trust me and see that I was good at my job. I've always struggled with board members who aren't necessarily female friendly when it comes to women in positions of authority. But I've worked really hard to get to where I am today. And people support me now. I think there's an overall feeling of she's done an okay job. And I think and again, it's still not the easiest job. I still go to meetings and I'm one of the few women in the room. I get called disruptive when I say something. I get called confrontational because I have an opinion. And for a long time, I was very quiet. I didn't want to rock the boat, let the men kind of make the decisions. And I figured it out and found my voice. And I'm very opinionated and I have very strong thoughts on where things should go and how things should be done and what the whole U.S. soccer vision should look like and sanctioning bodies and but it's always about what's best for the game. When there's politics involved and agendas involved and navigating through all of that has been very challenging. And I've gotten into it with some people and I've made some not so good friends, with some people. And so I think it's been a challenge, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I think what we've built in Southern California, because I've fought really hard to make it happen, sometimes with support, sometimes without support. But I think what we're doing is right. I think what we're doing is going to make a difference. And I think that's really all I want. You talk about legacies and what I want SoCal to look like when I'm gone and have hung it up. I want to know that what we did was right and what we did made a difference. And whether that's just in Southern California or in other parts of the country, then I'll feel like I did okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I am curious if your own experience coming up in this field that is male dominated, where people didn't look like you, has that affected or shaped how SoCal Soccer League treats the people who come to our league or work its games as referees, but the clubs, the coaches, the admins? Has that affected how you treat them and how kind of what you want the culture to be around this league?
I think in some ways I feel everybody should be treated the same, no matter what. And that's always been one of the platforms I've stood on is if you say yes to one person, you have to say yes to everybody. If you say no to one person, you can say no to everybody. That's the fair way to do it. It's how many people ask for exemptions? How many people can you make an exception here? This is different. And when you can say, I've said no 100 times before you've asked, or I've said yes to everybody, people understand. I think everybody should, and I've always said the big clubs, the small clubs, and everybody in between should feel equally as important. No, the big clubs shouldn't have the advantage just because they have 100 teams over the club that has 8. The same rules still have to apply. You're still putting the same amount of players on a field. You still have a coach and you still need refs. So I think one of the ways I've been successful in doing what I do is because everybody has to be treated equally. And if a big club comes to me and wants a favor or something done for them that I wouldn't do for other people, and I say no, they generally take it. I had to ask. It's like, you've known me 15 years. Did you think I was going to change my mind overnight? But that's the way it has to be. And again, it's being a woman in the man's world. You really have to stick to your principles and stick to the policies, because otherwise you're accused of favoritism or, well, you did it for him because you like him or her because you like her. No, everybody's the same. Like, I don't think you could come to me and ask me or say, oh, Michelle has a favorite club. Oh, Michelle treats this person differently than she treats this person. You've seen me. I hold people accountable and I say things to big clubs that I say to little clubs. So I think you have to do that. And I think that's the most important thing is everybody is equal. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. One thing I want to ask before we go, I got maybe one or two more questions, but I think this is so important. We're making a lot of investments right now for specifically in the referees, and we're making investments all over the place, but specifically the learning management systems, fair whistle software that we're doing. We're asking clubs to pay higher referee fees. And the big topic of conversation going on in this country right now is pay to play is the outrageous cost of playing soccer in our country. But from my experience and what I can see, SoCal Soccer League is still a deal. It's actually pretty inexpensive to play in our league. Can you talk a little about that? I think it's relatively inexpensive to register a team. There's no out-of-state travel required to play league games or tournaments or showcases. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that informs kind of what we do at SoCal?
Yeah, we've never had a high price point. And when the league first started in 2011, our cost was $450 a team. And today our cost is $500 a team. We went up $50 last year, I think was the first time we've gone actually in that direction. But we also need to generate more revenue to support the programming that we're doing. And it's easy to justify it that way, right? We're supporting programming to make the experience better, so we need to charge a little bit more. we don't charge what a lot of leagues out there charge. We certainly don't charge what a lot of the alphabet leagues charge. And we've always wanted to keep the price point to where it's affordable for anybody who wants to play. What the clubs charge, what their team fees are, their tournament, that's all on them. But as a league, we wanted to be able to say, look, we are still at a very reasonable price point, and yet we're providing all of this additional programming. And I think one of the things I said at our DOC meeting was, we are investing a lot of money. And no other league out there, regardless of national, local, regional, whatever, has come to us and said, let us help you build this. We want to be a part of this. We want to invest in this. But yet they're all going to benefit from it. They're all going to benefit from better referees. And so it's what we're doing at the local level and what we're building in Southern California is going to help other leagues, even though they're not using their resources or investing their profits and revenues into creating anything. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we are a local league in a big area, but investing to make things better.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And I think this is a kind of the story that needs to be told far and wide, that there is a way to create a competitive environment if people want to have a competitive environment for their child, but they don't have to travel cross country 4 times a year and stay in outrageously expensive hotels and pay all of those fees to be able to have a competitive environment for their child. That there is an alternative. We're doing it here in Southern California, but it can happen in Georgia, or it could happen in Florida or New York or Colorado or wherever it is. It can be done, and be done at a way where it doesn't break the bank for the family as well. And I hope that we're successful. And obviously the league has grown dramatically and continues to grow. And so there is definitely success there, but it's amazing it could even go a lot further. So I hope it does. Michelle, I just thank you so much for spending the time to kind of talking about this with me and with the referee community. I'm so grateful for your trust and your faith in me, but also the investments that you've made to make being a referee in Southern California better, a better experience, a safer experience, valuing our time properly. It's just so appreciated. So Michelle, thank you so much for coming on today, and looking forward to seeing all the wonderful things that we've done together continue to come to fruition.
Yeah, me too, David. We're going to change the world. We're going to start one little league at a time, but we're going to change it. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's all for today. Again, thank you so much for your time. If you want to learn more about SoCal Soccer League and what we're doing, we do have a website out there. You can look up SoCalSoccerLeague.org. We have a SoCal Refs YouTube page and a social media page where we post some specific SoCal stuff on those pages. You can follow us there. For me, of course, at Refs Need Love on Insta, on Facebook, on Instagram, or on TikTok, on YouTube, and the website as well, everywhere it is. And if you have questions about what we're doing, shoot me an email. Shoot me an email at gerson@SoCalSoccerLeague.org. We're happy to share. We want other people to learn about what we're doing and hopefully change the culture of soccer in our local communities across the country and across the world. So again, thank you so much for your time, and talk with you soon.